Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion on pathways. Welcome to our 8 panelists, and also for anyone who's out there viewing. We hope that you'll enjoy this interview or this conversation and that you'll gain something for it along the way. So my first speaker today, or panelist, is Adrian. And Adrian, I'm going to ask you, when Pathways was first introduced, you embraced it and progressed very quickly through the levels. What do you enjoy most about Pathways?
So I think probably one of the things that is fairly unique to me among our panelists here is that when I first started with Toastmasters, Pathways was my only option. I started at the start of 2018 when Pathways was coming in, and all new members, of course, were required to start with Pathways. And as the first member in my club to really interact with Pathways, I really got the opportunity to sort of be a pioneer, and very quickly, I have quite a strong IT background as well. So I was very quickly able to adapt to the new platform, figure out what was going on, and bring that experience back to the clubs, to our various new members that were coming on board after me, and just overall to show people that really the pathway system isn't all that different to the traditional system. It's just a different platform. I personally have always found a lot of the various complaints that I have heard against Pathways, given that to me, from my experience, Pathways is Toastmasters. They often didn't seem to actually match up, or alternatively, the exact same complaints could have been levied against the traditional program. But I love Pathways because I was able to use those speeches which were both directed enough to give me somewhere to go, but also generally open enough that you could take it in almost any direction, to the point where within my first 9 months, I did about 5 different test speeches, all of which matched projects that I was currently working on within my Pathways path of presentation mastery.
Well done, well done. Does anyone want to comment further on what Adrian had to say for us today? No? Okay, we'll move on to D. Oops, yes, Tracy, please.
Thanks, Barbara. I think what I like about Pathways is the fact that it gives a global viewpoint. Not just I can work with my mentor and that's wonderful, but it gives me the opportunity to get the view of a project from a worldwide perspective. I think that's really important.
Yep, very good. Now, I was a little bit remiss at the start of this recording because to those people out there watching, you've got the opportunity to have your say as well. You're able to, the Facebook live chat is open for you. So if you want to make some comment or some questions, you're able to do that while our discussion is going on. So Dee, you were a little bit of the opposite to Adrian. You were a little bit slow to get started on Pathways. So what were your thoughts when it was first introduced, and how are you feeling about Pathways now?
Yeah, exactly the opposite from Adrian. Now, I'm a bit of an oldie, and I was firmly entrenched in the legacy program, having achieved 2 DTMs and a bit more in its care. So when Pathways was announced, I was really excited, though, because I knew we needed to move from our beloved hard copy manuals to our changing digital world. However, that excitement was quickly dampened when the Pathways Guide gave our club an overview of how we would use it. Now, credit due, he did a good job. But the information for an oldie like me was that I could just feel myself tuning out, and his words kind of went like white noise after a while. And driving home, I thought, hell will freeze over before I use Pathways. You know, I avoided a lot of negative talk, and instead I kept pretending this great excitement about Pathways. And then I can remember constantly telling the other hesitant members, now Pathways the only way forward after June 2020, get excited. But then it finally hit me that I needed to lead by example. After all, everything in life changes, and we either move forward or we stagnate. And D. Douglas, stagnating, not an option. So I completed the survey to choose my path, presented my icebreaker. I was getting a handle, Adrian, I was getting a handle on all those arrows and the constant clicking and things. Wasn't loving it, and I still felt a resistance. But then I decided to order a different path to use in one of my other clubs, and everything changed. I had chosen the wrong path the first time. Now I had one that really suited me at my stage in Toastmasters, and rather than tolerating it, I was absolutely enjoying it. And then somebody told me you don't have to stay strictly on each level. If you've got a speech you really want, you can go and have a look at future levels and you might find it there. So I had all my wonderful favourite speeches that I was going to reinvent, and so off I went. So I am absolutely loving it. I also love the way that new members can progress so much faster than we could in Legacy. I see these new ones coming in and they're already talking career types of talk in all of their different presentations, and quite frankly, with their creativity, I'm learning all about leadership and communication a lot more than ever before. So I've been in Toastmasters around that 29 years, and I used to wonder, is there anything left to challenge me? And I can see now that thanks to Pathways, I'm going to continue growing as a speaker and a leader. And I'm also very proud to be accepting change. At 76, I know that I'll always have something new to challenge me. Barbara.
Well done, Dee. Well done. Does anyone want to add to Dee's response? Yes, Ian.
My comment while Dee was talking, I thought, oh, that's what I was going to say. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So I have to say ditto, Dee. Totally relate.
Okay, well done. So now, Judith. Judith, you've been an area director and you've been helping a lot of members in your area to get started on Pathways, past people who were having a bit of a struggle with it. What was the biggest challenge for these members at first?
Oh, thank you, Barbara. The first challenge was to change the mindset of myself first. And as a team leader, I had homework to do. So that is to learn as much as I could so I could pass it on to the members. The knowledge of computers is foremost in Pathways, and one of my clubs in Maryborough had some members with all abilities and all ages. We had extra meetings, so we took them along to the library in Maryborough where they have computers free. And the president there and myself, we sat beside them and walked them through the past. Then we went to meetings where we all took our laptops and sat one-on-one with them. So a whole group of people came in and sat with them. And now those members have progressed, and there's at least 5 of them with all abilities have progressed through their level 1 in Pathways. Some of them are even up to level 3, which is awesome to see. And I get great pleasure out of seeing the growth in those members. The first level of any 11 pass that we have is there's 6 items, though only 5 items are on the agenda. The first is an icebreaker, and it's a 4 to 6 minute speech, and that's about yourself. So you introduce yourself to your club. The second speech is a 5 to 7 minute speech, and it's about yourself. It's about an introduction to something you might like. Then the speech is evaluated, and you take that information home and you revamp that speech and you put into it what people have said to you about how you can improve, or you can do another speech. Then there's a speech evaluation. You have to evaluate someone in your club to give them some points for improvement and points, likes and dislikes, and encourage them. Then there's the level, completing level 1, there's a research speech. So that's a 5 to 7 minute speech. You research something that you might like, a new interest or an old interest, and bring that to the club. So there's 6 items in there. And every meeting I attend, I learn something new and something different, which is why I joined Toastmasters 30 years ago, and I have enjoyed every meeting since. And Pathways I love. I've completed 2 levels, one in leadership development and the other in motivational strategies. I'm moving forward now and taking on the Central Division Director, and I'm going to have a great team behind me and working with me, and to be supportive of all of those people and all of the area directors and all of the presidents that we have and our teams indeed. So growing our clubs, growing our members, being supportive, there's a whole gamut of reasons that I love Pathways, and I've completed 2 levels at the moment in a number of paths. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Judith. Now, to put Judith's response in perspective, one of the clubs that she's been supportive is a club that has members with challenges. Now, Judith, how has that club gone this year in the Distinguished Club program?
It is fantastic. As I said, there's 5 people that are NDIS supported, and they have all varying degrees of dyslexia and difficulties in proceeding with their speeches. But they have completed like about 11 or 12 goals. The only thing we can't do is gain members. We have about 15 members. We need another 5 to make it a distinguished President's Club. It is a club that the late Pat Pitt, was instigated in setting up and having this idea of all abilities coming along. And she's been very encouraging to me personally to get me onto being an area director. She said, "You can do this. I've been watching you." So I went, yeah, I put my hand up.
Very good. And well done with the progress with that club. Does anyone want to add to Judith's comments there? Yes, please, Adrian.
So personally, having been through the same sort of experience as Judith of aiding quite a number of people through particularly their first level and what those projects entail, what I do find myself is the biggest challenge for our new members is that second project, just because it has those multiple components. So I would definitely recommend anyone who's mentoring someone through Pathways or a VPE or such, try to get very familiar with that second project, which has the 2 speeches plus do an evaluation all within that single project, unlike most of our projects, which are 1 speech.
Yep, thanks for that. Now, Ian, your turn. I've heard that you do enjoy Pathways, and in fact, you've become the go-to person for quite a few people in your clubs. So how did you find a balance between finishing off the traditional program and getting underway in Pathways?
Thanks, Barbara. Just like quite similar to what Dee said, I didn't join Toastmasters as long ago as she did. However, I joined in the year 2000 and got really ensconced into, in those days, Competent Toastmaster, and then the CC, and then the CL, and I got up to as many as 13 CCs, I think, and I was working on my second Advanced Communicator Silver and a couple of CLs when Pathways came out. And when we had our Pathways guides come around, I seem to remember one of our division directors came around and visited the particular club I was in, and maybe 2 of the particular clubs I was in. And he said, there's this new thing that's coming out. It's going to be called Pathways, and I don't really know how it's going to work, and I don't think anyone else really does know how it's going to work. And that to me was a real turn off. So when it first came out, then in the middle of December 2017, if I recall, I thought, anyway, I was finishing my Advanced Communicator Silver, so I kept going with that. And then at that time, I was a member of 7 clubs, so I had ample opportunities to be making speeches. And I was, in fact, president of 2 clubs, so I thought I better set an example here and get a go-ahead. So the first project, of course, was the Icebreaker, and I went into Pathways, and I went into Base Camp, and I chose the path that I wanted to take, which was dynamic leadership. I felt that dynamic leadership was actually the one that came up as a preferred path that I should do. And I think that was correct, because I feel I'm more into the leadership role than the speaking role. I used to compete in speech contests, but I prefer now to be a leader, and I've loved doing that over the years. So I did dynamic leadership, and I did my icebreaker, and then I thought, hang on, how do I get this through? How do I finish it? Because I hadn't read the Navigator properly, hadn't been educated properly. And I have to commend one of our members in one of my clubs. She's fabulous. She was so into pathways. She's investigated everything. And I got in touch with her and said, you have to go in and complete your second self-evaluation. And of course, from there on, everything just fell into place, and it was fabulous. She also put me on to Pathways discussion group, which is a worldwide group. And it's amazing. If you're in Facebook and you join the Pathways discussion group, it's amazing how many questions are put up and how many answers you can get. I've now proceeded. I did find one thing, and I recommend this to anyone who's just starting Pathways. I did find that you need to really look ahead. As Dee said, you can now look ahead to what you're doing, because as you get up to level 4 and level 5 in some of the paths, you find you have to do an HPL. And if you haven't planned for that 6 months in ahead, you're probably not going to get there. I'm now starting my 5th path. There's 2 that I haven't completed, because one of them I need to do a keynote speech, which I have to organise with the club, and another one I have to do an HPL. So again, I'm sort of stuck there, but I'm progressing through. I put myself out there. And as far as helping others, can I use the word oldies? There are quite a few oldies in Pathways, even older than me. And they're so easy to go and sit down next to, have a cup of coffee and sit with them at their machine and train them. And they come back and they say, how easy. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Ian. The baby boomer said are definitely not sort of obsolete, are we? Okay, anyone want to make a comment on Ian's response? Okay, so we'll move on to Julie. Now, Julie's been the VP of Tropic City Toastmasters, and Tropic City Toastmasters is up there in Townsville, and it's a very high-performing club. I think they get distinguished every year. But Julie, even a club like that has its issues. So what do you do to motivate your members to progress in Pathways?
Motivating people through change is an interesting way to go. When I came back into Toastmasters after a fairly long break, I just came into the new Pathways. I had no idea about the older programs. So in that sense, I'm with Adrian there. You come in and that's the only way you go, and you don't have any old memories or old things you have to give up. So there was no grieving process to happen. But and a month in, it was the elections for our club, and no one put their hand up for VPE, not a soul. And I thought, oh, well, you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. Put my hand up, like that silly kid in the classroom that's always putting their hand up to answer the questions. So I thought, well, why not? Let's do it. I soon realised why, because there was not very much motivation in the club for Pathways. People were groaning and moaning every time I mentioned the word. So then it was about, I think change management happened at the top level and in district, but as it filtered down to the people that are pivotal to get the members onto Pathways, it wasn't quite as well done. Well, not in our area anyway. So our previous VP hated it, and let people know that he didn't like it. And of course, if we're going to go through change, we have to be on board ourselves. It's the most important thing. So I got in to learn all about Pathways I could, technically, and about the program. Now, I've worked with adults. I've been an adult trainer for 15 years before I retired. So I understand competency-based training. And this is now competency-based training. That is the difference between this and the old. And you can then transport that over your workplace very easily. What you're learning, competencies you're learning from Pathways can easily be related to what you're doing in the workplace or in other organisations you might work for, other volunteer organisations. So I had to then decide what I was going to do to help the situation. How can I pick them up? Well, number one was for me to get excited about Pathways. And when I did that, I transferred my enthusiasm to the club. And every week I did a VPE report, and I told them something positive about Pathways each week. We rewarded people for their projects. We let people know that they're going through, and I think that helps as well. Someone enthusiastic standing up there, giving it the push every week, helps other people think, well, maybe I can do that. Another thing that I did, I decided to talk to each member face-to-face and find out what their fears were. Now, I didn't know the club very well because I'd only been there for 6 weeks. So I really didn't know all the members. Some of the oldies there that had been around for, when I was there before, yes, I knew those, but most of them were new. So it was a good opportunity for me to learn about those people, to find out where they're at with Pathways, what were their fears, and what did they really want out of Toastmasters. So that was what I decided I had to do. I had to find out. Then I had to go on and do something. So weekly VPE reports included positives. I ran training sessions at Macca's meeting rooms every Saturday. Well, not every Saturday, every 4 weeks. From 10 to 4, people could come along and learn on their own. And I came early to the clubs and did one-on-one training with people. So really, it was about learning everything myself, becoming really motivated and very positive about it, and providing opportunities for the members to learn as well at their own pace and their own time. So that's how we managed to get over our hump in Tropic City Toastmasters.
Great response. Thanks, Julie. Yes, Judith, you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Julie, for that. I just like the competency-based training. I hadn't thought about it like that before, and I understand that concept. And being in training in the mining industry many years ago, that's a really good point. So so thank you for that. That's a good selling point for Pathways.
That's where competency-based training started, in the mining industry.
Yes, great.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yes, Ian?
I just wanted to make a comment. What a great idea to have training sessions that Julie talked about in McDonald's. You can also have training sessions at the libraries, because both of those places have Wi-Fi. And the only way that you can really train someone, I think, in Pathways is not to email them, but to sit down with them so that you can actually look at their laptop or their whatever, and you actually step by step by step. And I think it's great what Julie has done. I think that's fabulous.
Yep, well done. Thank you. Now, Dawn, so how far have you progressed through Pathways, and what is the best aspect for you?
Thank you, Barbara. I started the effective coaching. I've just completed level 3, but the best aspect for me was, let's step back in time. I became an ambassador for Pathways because, being a trainer, I knew it all. No. I had to learn how to do Pathways. It should be easy. Just read this, follow that through, go to the clubs. Not so. So that then became a massive learning curve for me. I had to get on and start doing it myself. And I'm a person that I can procrastinate, but I need to do to learn. And I had to do and do and do to learn, one step at a time. When I got to level 3, I was so excited that I didn't read the minimum 2 requirements. So now I'm down to 5. And someone said, no, Dawn, you don't have to do all of them. I said, oh, what am I going to do now? So thanks to Judith, because I'm often on the phone to Judith. So now I can hold things over to the next one. So I just think if there's any doubt, there's always someone there that you can ask. I'm the VPE for our club of oldies this year, Ian, and I'm going to take it on board and go around to those people in their own homes and sit with them each and work through that with them, because it's the understanding. You read things and you really don't know until you've seen it and actually do it. And coming out of the competency-based training world, it's quite easy in nursing, because if they die, they're dead. But in competency-based pathways, you're the one that'll die if you don't get going with it. So I just wanted my DTM, and now I'm starting along with Pathways and thoroughly enjoying it, I might add. It is challenging at a time, but it's like an elephant, guys. One bite at a time. Just do it. Barbara.
Well done, Dawn. I hope you're going to tackle the engaging humour path. That was well done. Yeah. Okay, any comments further to that? Really enjoyed that, Dawn. Now, David, I've heard lots of great reports about how you introduce Pathways into your clubs and the procedures that you had. And now your club's one of the leading clubs in the world, the top 13, you said. So what's your secret?
Thank you, Barbara. I always remember a quote by Zig Ziglar, which was, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And I think in the Toastmasters world, that means if you help the members get what they want, the club will also get what the club wants, which is fantastic. Like you said, we've managed to get 72 education awards from our club, our base of 29 members. 62 of those are Pathways. We're very lucky. One of our leadership team, which is Teflon Fiola, she just got her DTM. So that accounts for some of the non-Pathways awards from that. How we did it, or probably the success of how we managed to do a lot of things with Pathways, is picking up on some of the other comments. For example, what Julie said is talking about a VP. The VP finds out what the goals of the member wants. And if we can incorporate the goals of the members want and what they want to achieve into Toastmasters, then there's more buy-in, because when people don't join Toastmasters to watch and listen, they join to practice and learn. And I love what Dawn just said about we learn by doing. Because then if we can then get them to participate more, doing roles, delivering speeches, then they have more momentum. And if they're getting more confidence with that, whilst achieving their goals, then they're more happier and they're more interactive with the club. And then one thing leads to another and it becomes a ripple effect and you just get momentum. The other thing that we did that was extremely important, and other members of the panel here have discussed this too, we introduced systems and processes. As a committee, we're very diligent around how we can do this. We wanted to make the meetings still sharp and professional, but fun and friendly. So therefore we can still have the engaging and still be fun, but also be learning on our projects along the way. And by having good systems and processes that help and support the club, it helps those who are running the club to be a case of rinse and repeat. Therefore, it makes it easier for everybody. Members are achieving their goals, they're getting what they want. And if they're achieving their goals and education goals, then the club's getting what it wants. You've got very simple, basic, simple processes and systems in place to support those running the club and the members. Therefore, everybody gets what they want. And then if everybody's happy, then it just becomes a rinse and repeat moving along. And once again, if we help them get their goals, then our club would automatically, by default, achieve their goals. Thank you. Back to you, Barbara.
Yeah, thank you, David. And I guess that's a message that District has delivered for quite some time, that if members are reaching their goals, it will just flow through to District's goals. So Judith, you wanted to add something, did you? Yes?
Yes, just listening to David and Dawn and what everyone else was saying, the mentorship program in Pathways, there's a whole path with mentoring, and that's what some of us are talking about by taking people aside, sitting with them, guiding them through step by step, and doing it with them and doing it, we're all scared of it, but we're doing it afraid anyway, but we have mentors, we have coaches, and that helps everybody come together for the one good. So, yeah, I really like that too. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Ian?
Barbara, I was going to make a comment in general that no one's actually mentioned it yet. However, my belief is that particularly younger members who are joining are more competent on computers, and someone did mention that. I think Adrian mentioned that. And so they go straight into Pathways and they understand it, and they just need a couple of tips from time to time. People who have been in Toastmasters under the old school system need to transfer across and need to get their thought processes changing. However, there are particular members who are really a lot older than me, and they don't want to go onto computers and do the computerized pathway. So no one's mentioned that, in fact, there are manuals available. I think persuasive communications, or
Five of them.
mastery.
Yep.
I
Five
think
of the parts are available as a manual.
Yes, they can do it as a manual. And we had, in one of my clubs, we had, I think as many as 3 or 4 members who'd been members for years. One of our members is 45 years in Toastmasters, or 50 years in Toastmasters, and they've started using the manuals. And it's interesting that one of the ladies who joined using a manual, I don't want to go on computers, she's now thriving on computers. She's thrown the book away, she's re-registered, and she's thriving on computers, and she does a fabulous job. Sets herself up every Tuesday morning and stands back with a lectern and gives a presentation as if she's at the meeting. It's fabulous. And of course, the Zoom, of course, is an extra challenge, and I think people are rising to that occasion. It's beautiful. So that's just another comment that I thought I should make in there, throw in there.
No, excellent. Thanks, Ian. Now, Tracy, last but not least, as an area director, you also have been providing a lot of training in pathways. Whoops, something happened. Sorry, I thought I was kicked out. I'll start that again, Tracy. As an area director, you've been providing a lot of training in pathways for several clubs and offering one-on-one support, as some of the others have done. What difference has it made for the members that you've helped to have that one-on-one support?
Thank you, Barbara. Providing the pathways training has made a huge difference to my clubs in my area. When I started as area director, trying to get members in clubs on board was a really tough ask. They really had a really negative mindset to pathways. So I set out for my aim to change that mindset. And over time, I've just kept chipping away by visiting clubs, introducing all of the Rod Moore videos on District 69 webpage, doing little education sessions in clubs, offering that one-on-one coaching for all members of all clubs. And it's taken some real persistence and determination for me to just keep offering it and hoping that my clubs will all succeed by the 30th of June. And there was an awful lot of hesitancy by members and clubs. But changing their mindset and challenging them to sort of step up and change that mindset has been a real blessing, because as somebody else said, we do have an older demographic in my area, and they don't have that technology skills. They're not comfortable with technology. But slowly I have brought them around. And those one-on-one sessions with members has really helped them build their confidence and feel more comfortable to just step up and have a go. And it's been an absolute pleasure to sit with someone and step them through that process and let them to ask me the questions that they're not sure of, and also make them aware of other things in pathways that they may come across. Once I had some members on board, then I suggested that they start mentoring each other. So if they completed a level, then they mentor somebody else going through that level. And that's introduced clubs then to introduce a mentoring program, which has been working quite well. And it gives those members that confidence and that support. Members, they didn't feel like they had to do it alone anymore. Because when you're with a computer at home and you don't know technology and you don't know pathways, it's easier to give up. So once they had that support system in place, they were happier to have a go. And I am really pleased that in my area clubs, they have definitely got to that comfort level to be able to move forward and now have a new appreciation with pathways. So I'm really pleased to see that they have grown individually And by doing the challenge of stepping up to taking on not just Pathways, but the Zoom platform, which opens them up to that mentoring session on Zoom as well, that they can support themselves in their own program, as well as the club and their distinguished club program. So therefore, providing that one-on-one support has made an absolute huge difference in my area clubs. And I am really, really proud of the clubs to having a go to succeed with Pathways. Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you, Tracy. Yes, over the last 12 months, we encouraged clubs to introduce a Pathways expert or guru or whatever you want to call them, but someone in the club, each club, who was available to do that. Now, I can honestly say I don't know. I know that some clubs did do it, but I don't know how widespread that was. There is a question from one of the viewers saying that what about ongoing training? That the VPE role is already a huge role. So can I have a few opinions on what sort of ongoing training that you think there is for Pathways across the district? Yes, Tracy.
I think that's again where I just said, if you finish a path, then you mentor somebody in your club that's starting that path. That way they can then ask the questions, you can learn, and it's just a process that, well, the clubs in my area are starting to take on board.
Yep. I think that's peer tutoring. That it is a specific education principle of peer tutoring, I think.
Yeah, it takes the pressure off, say, a club coach, it takes the pressure off a VPE, and it actually educates every single member in the club to be a mentor.
Yep, good. Ian, you were going to say something?
I was going to say very similar there to Tracy, that and the instigation of having a club go-to person, I think, is fabulous. I have always, as I say, I'm a member of 6 clubs. I don't put it out to all the clubs, but some of the clubs that have got newish members, I always put it out. I'm there. If someone wants a hand doing something, and even some of the clubs that I'm no longer with, I get emails and say, can you come and give me a hand? Can you come and show me what to do? And I'm right into that. I think one-on-one is so good. And I think if every club had a go-to person other than the VPE, because the VPE is remarkably busy and it's a challenge for a VPE, and as is the president, but the president probably has more time than a lot of other people because they're riding on the backs of their committee, aren't they, Dawn? I can see you smiling. But as president, I'm happy to be a go-to person, and I often say, I'll be there if you need me, come out. And it's amazing how many people come back and say, oh, we don't need you now because we've worked it out ourselves, because they learn, they do it, it works.
Yeah. Judith, you wanted to add to it? I'll get you in next, Adrian, after Judith.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Barbara. Just adding to the Pathways thing, we've got 5 new members in South Burnett Club, and we're going to have a 20-minute educational session on Pathways. Some of them have completed their icebreaker. A couple did their second speech the other night. But actually choosing their path and getting in there and knowing all about it, we actually need to sit down with them and say, this is what we do. So the pathway, I'm the Vice President of Education, so I rang the Pathways coach up and said, would you mind doing this? And she said, I would love to. So that's really awesome. In our club, we have the executive committee, they're all on board with it, and they're all going to the training for their job roles. And we talk up training all the time for Toastmasters. That's what we do. We train people and educate them. So and it's a roll-on effect. So what you've got, you share. So, and that's the whole thing. So thank you, Barbara.
Adrian, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, and thank you, Barbara. It's sort of a reiteration of what others have said. In one of my clubs, we do have mentors, of course, but we also have Pathways mentors, people that anyone can go to if they do have any queries about Pathways. And if you are struggling with it, you can even be assigned to one of them particularly. And effectively, it's a matter of anyone who's gotten to at least level 3 of Pathways is fair game for being able to be approached and be a Pathways mentor from that perspective. And obviously anyone who's willing to, but yeah, anyone that's got some experience with the program can share that if others need it.
Yep. Tracy?
Yeah, just adding beyond that, the resources that are available, because considering some people may not want the one-on-one, they're more visual or need to have paper. So those resources on District 69 website, you know, Pathways 101, which is the same as your Pathways but in a paper version, as well as the Pathways Guide, is always an absolute wonderful resource for those people for different ways of learning it.
Yep. Yes, Dawn.
I'd just like to say, I think pride comes before the fall. Some of our oldies have got DTMs, and they've been there, done that. So why do I have to go back and learn this new one? What benefit is it going to be to me? Who's going to help me through it? Because I don't use a computer. I don't understand that, and I've got my DTM. How many times do I have to do that? And just listening to the panel today with Ian and Dee, I can go back to my DTMs and say, suck it up. Let's move on. This is a new world. You've got to learn to drive the new car. So I think that's a good way.
Yeah, I agree totally, Dawn. Like, I am in the baby boomer age bracket, and trust me, you have to keep your body working. You have to keep this working too. So that's my argument to anyone who says that, is it is just as important to keep your brain active as any other part of your body. And I know of at least one member in her 90s in Alice Springs Club who is doing Pathways. So there's no excuse. Just keep it or lose it. Keep using it or lose it. We do have another, did anyone else want to comment on that? Otherwise, I've got another comment here to discuss.
I just want to say there's a whole new DTM out there with Pathways. You can go for another DTM.
That's right, yes.
Don't have to sit back.
Sit back on your laurels. Yes, Julie.
I just wanted to say that, we're an educational learning organisation. We're not a social club. We have a lot of social interaction and it plays a big part. But at the end of the day, our core business is education and learning. So
the two
out there and learn. It's great for your brain. Keep your brain working even if your body's not.
Yeah, there's two basic principles there. Learn by doing and learn while you're having fun. So there. Now, I've got another comment here, a question. How do your clubs publicly acknowledge their members' achievements in Pathways? Someone want to comment on that? Ian?
Thanks, Barbara. Yes, we publicly acknowledge it at our meetings. So I'm in, as I said, I'm in 6 clubs. One of the clubs, the VPE prints off the certificate and presents that at the subsequent meeting as they finish each path. So you get a certificate each time you finish a level. Sorry, not a path. You get a certificate each time you finish a level. You also get, from America, you get a lovely gold certificate on cardboard when you finish a full path, and they are presented at the club. I'm a member of another club where they don't print out the certificate, but the members themselves print their certificate out and bring it along, and it gets presented. And now that we're on Zoom, they get screen shared. So we are acknowledging that something's happening. They're acknowledging, just like when people used to do a CC, people would stand up. We now present certificates and we have badges. And I believe that District, certainly this last year, District have been sending out a lovely congratulatory card with a pin in it saying, congratulations, you've completed dynamic leadership or whatever.
Yeah. And that's going to continue this year, where when people finish, we have the pins for the level 5. If you complete a whole level, a whole path, you get, District will award the pin. But also, we're going to reintroduce the Triple Crown. Now, we made a decision last year because 3 levels on the traditional program, or 3 awards on the traditional program and 3 awards on Pathways, there was a big difference. But now that the traditional program is finished, we'll bring back the Triple Crown. You only get it once in a year, But when you finish 3 awards, you'll earn the Triple Crown. And we're hoping that also will give us the momentum, the motivation to keep going, because people, it's a really nice pin and people really aspire to it. So you can say out there that the Triple Crowns are back for Pathways. Yes, Tracy?
There's also little level pins, level 1, level 2, level 3 that you can get on the TI website.
Yes, you can.
And they're not that expensive, so it's something an executive club team can have a discussion.
Yeah. You have to work out the exchange rate and the postage. They've actually got the Pathways pins on a 25% discount at the moment, apparently, up till the 30th of June. But the level 5s, District has them. Any more comments on that? Are there any more comments in general? Otherwise, we'll wind this up. Well, yes, Ian.
Sorry, I don't want to hog the conversation or the panel, but I did note that we haven't spoken anything about the evaluations. And I think the way that the Pathways have their evaluations, they are a standard evaluation. So every level and every path, given that the last question on the second page is usually specific to the path that you're doing or the level you're doing, but generally the evaluations are generally the same. So if you get a value, and I particularly like the level 1 project B, which is where you do a speech and get evaluated, then you do another speech, and so that when you get evaluated, you can then repeat that speech and take on board what's been given to you as points for improvement. And I think that's a brilliant concept, because back in the day, in the olden days, you did a speech and you got evaluated and you forgot all about the evaluation. You just went on and did another speech and so it carried on. And I think the way they've got the evaluations now to be systematic through every path is a good concept.
And I think, when I was still in Townsville, we were given an excellent educational on the Pathways evaluation and really drilling it down. The 1 to 5 rating on the back, you really need to read what those numbers 1 to 5 stand for. If you get a 3, it's a good rating, because it says you've got those skills. To get a 4 or a 5 means you're exceeding the level of skill. Or if you get a 1 or a 2, it means you're still growing or developing to get those skills. And unfortunately, some people will look, oh yes, that's an experienced person, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, without reading what the ratings actually stand for. So after I sat in on that educational session, I really took a closer look at what the numbers stand for and where they're at. So if there's no further comments, I'll just thank everyone for your participation. I hope that you've inspired some of our members today who've sort of not just started, and that they will get right into Pathways, because it's a wonderful program. It's a learn by doing, and the skills are transferable out into the real world. And that's part of the purpose of it. It's learn by doing, learn while you're having fun. And the rest it's there for us all to see. And thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.